you start viewing taxes as an asset, not a liability, and you start thinking about taxes as an opportunity. In the same way that we say, hey, what's a good stock to pick? Should I be jumping on NVIDIA right now? Should I be long or short on tech right now? Or is tech overpriced? If we put that much effort into tax strategy, you may not need to get quite such great rates of return if you could save more of your money.
Let's talk about all the documents and papers we're going to be buried in, digital or paper, that is going to come upon us soon as we get ready for tax prepping season. It's a bit of a circus pulling everything together. You do tax planning. I want to talk about that. What is the importance of that? What is the difference of it?
Tax prep is looking out the rear windshield. It's what happens is in the spring of 2026, we get together with our CPA and look back at last year and see what we did and settle up. That's it. How much did you pay in? How much did you withhold? How much did you earn? What were your taxable withdrawals, taxable investments? All these things all come together and say, all right, based on that, you and the government need to settle up for X dollars. You and the state need to settle up for X dollars. And here we go. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's a rear view mirror view of it. Tax planning says, all right, if I'm 55 or I'm 60 and I'm looking at my retirement and I think, hey, I have $800,000 in my 401k, 100 grand in a Roth, and 200,000 in a brokerage account. How are each of those things taxed, and how much am I scheduled to pay in taxes over the next 25 to 30 years of my life? And that sometimes is a big number. We start looking at, all right, in my life, I'm expected to pay this much in taxes. How can I minimize that and bring that number down? How can I build strategies for not paying all this money in taxes? So tax planning is a forward look at the next 10 to 15 years. And what can we do now to steer the ship away from the big tax icebergs and burdens down the road by making a few small decisions now, or sometimes pretty aggressive decisions? It's strategies to keep more of the money you've earned. So that's what tax planning is. So tax prep, again, is looking in the rear view saying, hey, here's what I did. Let's settle up. Tax planning says, all right, I have a home, I have kids, I have all these things. How do I make sure that I don't go through probate and give away money and pay unnecessary state taxes? How do I protect what I've earned and saved? And it's just a whole different ideology. I love our CPA. They do outstanding work, but their primary focus with me is to keep me legal, safe, protected, and do things the right way. And then what you have to do is you can't do any forward creative thinking in March or February or April. Why? Because they are just hammering through tax returns. They're tax prepping, tax returning. If you want to do creative conversations, you have to do those in July, August, September. Well, really not even September because they're getting ready for the October deadlines. So you have to do those in the off season. And you really want a forward thinking tax planner who is going to help you be creative in the future and find ways, use the tax code to your advantage. Again, tax planning says, if here's all the rules of the tax code, let's make these strategic chess moves to, over the next 20 years, pay less in taxes. That's the type of stuff we're looking at in a tax planning scenario. You start viewing taxes as an asset, not a liability, and you start thinking about taxes as an opportunity. In the same way that we say, hey, what's a good stock to pick? Should I be jumping on NVIDIA right now? And all these questions that people ask about portfolios, if we put that much effort into tax strategy, you may not need to get quite such great rates of return if you could save more of your money. Now, again, some tax strategies have certain thresholds, right? Like I can't do crazy tax strategies if there's not a lot of assets there. But there are tax strategies for those with low assets you should be using, mid-level assets or high assets. It's just different strategies. But to just let taxes happen to you rather than deal with them on your own and actually be proactive, I just think it's a missed and underserved marketplace in the financial world. Because what typically happens is we're going to these silos of responsibilities. My financial guy does my investments, my CPA does my taxes, my estate planning guy does my will and trust, and we silo all that stuff rather than saying, hey, how do we make sure that the taxes affect my investments, affect my estate plan? They should all work together.
I have to imagine when working with folks, the difference it can make. I've heard you tell stories before about the tax strategies that you've used. In some cases, you end up saving somebody several $100,000 in taxes throughout their retirement. That's the game changer this kind of tax planning can be for somebody.
We had someone who came in earlier, I guess it was in 2023 or 24.
Yeah.
But when he came in and he met with us as we were talking through, again, he thinks he's meeting with the financial advisor, which he is. We're financial advisors. Yeah. But when he came in, we said, bring your tax return. Why did I bring my tax return? Well, because we talk about taxes too. And as we looked at the last 5 years of tax returns, we were able to go through and say, hey, what are all these taxable events? Why are you paying so much in taxes? I don't know. So we went back to his investment statements, and we were able to look at the investment statements and the taxes. He had a good size account that was being heavily turned over. And so he was paying tons of money.
He had a stock account,
Yep.
and his advisor was trading
heavily.
Okay.
And as a result, churning up all these short-term capital gains, which are taxed as ordinary income. And again, that's nerdy talk for saying he was paying a high level of taxes. He's paying income tax on money he wasn't taking out as income. Some years it was as much as $80,000 or $90,000 in taxes.
Wow.
And he said, this is just what happens when you have this much money. I said, no, it's not.
It is not.
So we had to go through and say, I think your investments are being made in a silo. They're just trying to churn you the best return, but to the tune of $90,000 of extra taxes. And so when we went through and did a revisit, we said, what if you held those positions longer than a year? And they became long-term capital gains, and the tax rate drops dramatically on those. Some of the positions were only held like 340 days, 310 days. If they were held 1 month longer, they're taxed at a fraction of the rate. And so again, the silos hurt a plan, because it's I say this all the time, but it's like coaching one player on a basketball team and hoping the whole team does well. But if you got 5 coaches coaching all 5 starters, hopefully they have the same game plan. But they don't, because in the financial world, they don't even work in the same firm most of the time. They work across town or across the country or across the state. That's my big issue with the large financial institutions, is that they are siloed. I'm like, as big as you are, you should be doing all these things. How can the local person, like the independent firms like us, how can we and our team do all of the services, but yet you're a huge multinational giant big box firm and you say, I can't give you tax advice, but yet on everybody's letterhead, it says CFP, MBA, all the stuff, right? All the same stuff we have. I have an MBA, I have a CFP, but yet we help people with their taxes and estate plan. And these big box firms say, no, we don't do that, because as a big box firm, it's a real liability to have an advisor out there giving tax advice. What if they're not good at it? So they tell you, go talk to your CPA who's looking in the rearview mirror, go talk to your estate planning attorney who's charging you by the hour, and yet there's no discount on your financial services because they're not doing those. So there's a lot that goes into it. And I just think that when you work with a local firm or an independent firm that has a CFP who actually goes through and does all these strategies, it builds a true, robust financial plan that works for you and your family. And it's not just about the one service per firm.
Ladies and gentlemen, listening to this podcast, keep more of your hard-earned money. Don't hand it over to the government just because you think you have to. Mike and his team here to show you what your options are. MichigansRetirementCoach.com.